Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. Israel is mourning the deaths of 10 teenagers. They died in a flash flood while hiking near the Dead Sea. Unusually heavy rains at this time of year fell throughout Israel, where even small amounts of rain can produce flash floods in the desert. The teenagers joined a program to introduce them to a pre-army prep military school. And compounding the tragedy, police arrested some of the organizers of the hike on suspicion of negligence, as the outing went ahead despite general warnings of the floods. In the meantime, officials are warning people to stay away from the Dead Sea area till the rains subside. While there are physical dangers living here in Israel surrounded by enemies, in Europe, Jews can face another kind of danger, anti-Semitism. As Dale Hurd reports, some are wondering if it's time to leave the continent.
This phone video from Germany showing a man wearing a Jewish cap being attacked in the street went viral last week, creating a national controversy in Germany and causing Chancellor Angela Merkel to admit publicly that the large numbers of Arab refugees her government has brought into Germany have brought anti-Semitism with them. The head of Germany's Jewish community even advised German Jews to stop wearing kippahs or Jewish caps in public. But other leaders called on all Germans to wear kippahs Wednesday. It resulted in the largest show of support for German Jews since before the Second World War.
Hiding ourselves, that is not the solution to anti-Semitism. That has never been the solution. That only strengthens the people that are trying to make us afraid.
France was shocked last month after an 85-year-old Holocaust survivor was murdered in what French police call an anti-Semitic hate crime. She was stabbed 11 times before her body was set on fire. 300 French leaders issued a manifesto denouncing a new anti-Semitism that is leading to what the manifesto called an ethnic purge of Jews from France. Even in Britain, apparent widespread anti-Semitism by members of the Labour Party has become a political scandal. The new anti-Semitism that has swept across Europe has come to Belgium as well, and it's the same story. Physical attacks and cursing of Jews in the street. In this security video posted on Twitter last week, a man is seen ripping the mezuzah or religious sign off the door of an Antwerp synagogue. This is so common now in some parts of Europe. We visited this synagogue in Brussels that decided to take its mezuzah down. Israel's president says anti-Semitism is again in full sight in Europe.
There's concern in Hungary, there's concern in France. There is a concern of a new and very ugly wave of anti-Semitism sweeping Western Europe, and I think that we will see more Jews coming to Israel.
Alan Hoffman is head of the Jewish Agency, which helps Jews return to Israel.
We hear of Jewish children being taunted in public schools, and so families say, if this is what the future is going to look like, I don't think that this is what I'd like to see for my children.
In Poland, this Holocaust survivor says people still whisper that Hitler did a lot of bad things, but he also freed us from the Jews. But Jews in Europe today know what happened in the 1930s and seem determined to not make the same mistake again. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
As the head of the Jewish Agency stated in Dale's story, this growing anti-Semitism is causing some European Jews to seriously consider immigrating to Israel. But whether or not anti-Semitism is the reason they choose to come, some see the return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel as something the Hebrew prophets said would happen one day. And they're coming not just from Europe, but as the Bible predicted, from all over the world. CBN's Scott Ross takes a look at just how it's done.
They come from all over the world to a place many have never been. Yet the Jewish people have longed to return to this land for thousands of years.
I'm Sarah from France.
Hi, I'm Dylan from Uruguay. I did Aliyah in December. I'm here because I love Israel.
Hi, my name is Debbie. I'm from Córdoba, Argentina.
I'm Nikita from Russia.
Hi, my name is Gadi. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I made Aliyah in December. I'm a lawyer in New York, and I'm here because it's the only Jewish state there is.
It's called Aliyah, literally going up, taken from biblical times. The term describes when people went up to Jerusalem to worship at the temple. Now it means immigrating or returning to Israel.
You're an American.
Yep.
Yeah, why did you come?
It's a beautiful country. I love it here.
Yeah, Arizona's beautiful.
Arizona is beautiful, but it's not Israel.
Last year, 27,000 new immigrants arrived in Israel, including 3,600 from the United States.
For almost 3,000 years, we were disconnected, but we were praying for Jerusalem.
I spoke with Natan Sharansky, leader of the Jewish Agency, which oversees bringing the Jewish people home.
I am very proud to be the head of the organization now, which brought 3.5 million Jews from the creation of the State of Israel.
Sharansky made headlines in the 80s as a political prisoner in the former Soviet Union. International pressure led to his release, and he immigrated to Israel in 1986.
I meet with a lot of new immigrants, and I love to be in the airport and to see this moment of them going down from the airplane, because you think that after each of these people, there are at least 50 generations of Jews who were praying and dreaming about coming to Jerusalem. And each of them is closing a huge circle of 1,000 years of exile.
Biblical prophets Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel all spoke of a time when God would bring the Jewish people back to the land of Israel. The prophet Amos says they'll never be dispersed again. Although they're part of a prophetic and exciting journey, immigrants face a whole new world when they arrive.
Some of the people left everything. Left the friends, left families, left the smell, the food, the jobs, all the things that they knew. They're coming here and they start a new life.
That's why the state works to create a smooth transition. Ziva Avrahami leads Beit Canada, Ulpan Etzion, an absorption center in Jerusalem. New immigrants live here free for 5 months so they can focus on learning Hebrew and living in Israel.
We call them the first home in the homeland. They're coming here and they have like a soft landing. They don't need to be afraid from things. We help them to be part of Israel, but step by step.
How important is it that they learn Hebrew?
The main reason that the people are here in this absorption center is to get to know the language. The Hebrew is the key to the Israeli society.
Ulpan Etzion is mainly for millennials who have a university degree. You could say it's like a prophetic melting pot.
Are there conflicts between them, culturally, socially, adapting and adjusting to one another?
Yes. There are different people for different places. The culture is different. The language is different. So to put together 250 young adults in one place, you can imagine what's going here in the evenings. A lot of people are becoming friends for life. The first year and the second year are the hardest one. And if you survive the 2 years, people are staying in Israel. This is going to be their home.
I spoke with some of the students about their experiences.
I think it's the land of the Jewish people, and that is why I'm here. I want to essentially come home and to be with my fellow Jews and to please God find a Jewish husband.
Why did you come?
Well, I came to Israel because I feel this is the homeland of the Jewish people, and for the first time in 2,000 years we have our own homeland and we can build a prosperous Jewish state, and I think that's very exciting to be a part of.
What kind of work would you like to get into?
I studied accounting and finance, so hopefully something in that area.
Do you want to get married?
Yeah, for sure. That's why I'm here in Israel. There's plenty of beautiful Jewish girls, and let's hope I can find one of them.
As Sharansky prepares to leave his role, I asked if he thought all the Jewish people need to come home.
Our prophets speak about it very clearly, about this grand design of ingathering of the people of Israel in the land of Israel. And I want to help the people to make this decision not by giving orders, not by pushing them, even not by shaming them, but simply by giving them the feeling how good it is.
Scott Ross for CBN in Jerusalem.
One of the most significant periods in Israel's history came during the Jewish exile described in the books of Daniel, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. That period ended when King Cyrus of Persia helped the Jewish people return to the land of Israel. We learned more about that time from ancient artifacts that were displayed in an exhibit in Jerusalem's Bible Lands Museum a few years ago. By the rivers of Babylon we sat and wept for Zion. Those are the words of Psalm 137, written when King Nebuchadnezzar destroyed Jerusalem and carried the Judeans away captive to an area that's present-day Iraq. It's also the name of a new exhibit at the Babylonian Museum that Chief Curator Filip Vukosavovich calls an incredible puzzle.
What we do here is for the first time tell a complete story of the Babylonian exile from approximately 604 BC when Nebuchadnezzar comes for the first time to the land of Israel up to 539 when Cyrus and the Persians conquer Babylon and release all the exiles.
Much of the information for this exhibit came from these clay tablets written in Akkadian in ancient cuneiform script. On display for the first time ever, they tell of daily life in Al-Yahudu, the city of Judah in Babylonia.
Probably next to the Dead Sea Scrolls and the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, this is the most important documentation that has ever been revealed.
Museum director Amanda Weiss says it also opens a major chapter of Jewish history.
It's the thread that ties us to our ancestors.
Here we see an ancient tablet next to a modern one that tells the story. The texts talk about real people, exiled Judeans, and everyday life from rental agreements to tax issues.
One of these people is Haggai, son of Ahikam. I have actually chosen Haggai simply to narrate the story of the Babylonian exile that has never been told before.
In the exhibit, Haggai tells the story from the first exiles all the way to Babylon in 3 animated movies. Vukosavovich says he met Haggai in these texts.
I know his brothers, I know his father, I know his grandfather and grandmother. You know what? I know his great-grandfather. All of this through these new texts which nobody has seen before.
Weiss says one of her favorite parts of the exhibit is the model of the Al-Yahudu village.
We actually are showing interactively a scene in daily life, and you can see plowing the fields and rowing down the canals and the rivers and people cooking in their home fires in the evening and the date palm trees, and you get a sense of the cycle of life.
Part of what the tablets show is that the exiles lived prosperous lives and followed Jeremiah's command. Build houses and live in them, and plant gardens and eat their produce. Multiply there and do not decrease. And seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will have welfare.
So when in 539 Cyrus the Great and the Persians conquer Babylon, Cyrus simply releases all the exiles. Many decide to stay, like Haggai and his family. They had established lives. They had rich lives. They had their families. They had their schools. And only in 1950, 1952, following the establishment of the State of Israel, the state of Iraq simply expelled thousands and thousands of Jews. So just as they went with almost nothing, they returned with almost nothing. So that is a full circle of the Jewish people that were exiled and then returned after 2,500 years.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the Babylonian Museum, Jerusalem. To commemorate Israel's 70th anniversary, CBN produced a new documentary called To Life: How Israeli Volunteers Are Changing the World. Here's a portion of that film called Innovation Africa. It shows how one Israeli company is bringing life-saving technology to the heart of the continent while transforming lives and even answering prayers.
In 1903, a wave of bloody massacres swept through the Jewish communities of the Russian Empire. Over the next 3 years, more than 2,000 Jews were slaughtered, and thousands more were forced to flee their homes. Desperate to find a safe haven for them, Zionist leader Theodor Herzl sought help from Great Britain. In response, the British colonial secretary offered him land in the Karamoja district of northern Uganda, then a British colony. Ultimately, the Zionists turned down the offer and chose to wait for land in Palestine instead. And the so-called Uganda scheme was abandoned. Now, more than a century later, the Jewish people are in Karamoja at last. This time, to help save a region on the brink of destruction. Today, Karamoja is a wasteland of famine, disease, and starvation. A prolonged drought has left half the population struggling just to stay alive. There's very little food and no clean water.
I am praying to God to keep me from the disease that attacked my child because of the water we drink. He became sick and died. I am praying to Jesus to help us that we may not be infected anymore.
In this village, children survive by eating mice and rats. In another village, people bleed their cattle and drink the blood for nutrition. And still others have nothing but seeds and leaves for food.
So they eat the leaves of the trees right now?
Yeah.
What is it? Show me. This is unbelievable. It's not human. It's not human. As a mother, you have to make a choice. If you have a little bit of leaves, who are you going to give it to? Who from your kids are you going to help to survive? And who not? That's the choice that they have to do every day. And as a mother of 3 kids, I don't want even to think about making a choice like this. Choosing between your children, which one will survive, it's breaking my heart. It's not easy to be an African woman. Unfortunately, what we are seeing in the villages is that children, especially girls and mothers, are spending hours a day to look for water.
I am so sad for my children who died because of the dirty water we drink. I am in fear of my 3 living children because they are often sick from the water. My children cough all the time. If I lose any more children, I will be in deep sorrow.
The word water has made me suffer. At times, we lack water completely. We cannot even cook because there is no water. We feel chest pains from carrying a jerry can. I am pleading for God to have mercy on us so that we can be healthy. We are here with no solution. What shall we do?
The solution is so simple. We, the Jews, faced the same difficulties when we first came back to Israel in the late 1800s. When the Jews first came back to Israel, what they found is dry land, barren, and out of necessity, they were forced to create, to innovate, so they can pump water, so they can grow food. And I realized what we should do is simply transfer the same technologies, the same know-how that we have in Israel back to the African villages. And that's how it all started.
Here's how Israeli technicians and innovators are bringing solutions to Africans struggling with lack of clean drinking water. It's part of CBN's new documentary, To Life, How Israeli Volunteers Are Changing the World.
Innovation Africa was funded 9 years ago with a very simple mission, which is to bring Israeli solar technologies to transform schools, medical centers, and most importantly, to pump water. We've been operating now in 7 African countries, and we have transformed over 130 villages. So far, we have helped 1 million people, and it's a lot of people, but when you think about the challenge is so much bigger. In Africa, today, you still have 620 million people who do not have access to energy.
Israeli engineer Meir Yacobi designed a system that allows technicians both in Israel and in Africa to monitor the output of solar energy in each village.
I'm building a platform which enables regional managers to know what's going on, because they are the one who needs to maintain the project and fix if something is broken. If you log in, you see an alert, a red or an orange alert, it depends, that tells them what we think happens.
From the monitoring system to the drip irrigation in the fields, the technology is all made in Israel.
Once you're exposed to a need, you know what is the way. You start thinking of a way. They say when there is a need, there is a way. Well, I was an electrical engineer who was working for Israeli utility company and Intel. I wasn't aware of these needs. But once I was exposed to them by Innovation Africa, I understood that maybe we can build a tool to help them scale up.
By having access now to water, not only they can drink, but by using the drip irrigation, we can grow more food with less water.
Innovation Africa has provided solar power for more than 130 villages in Africa.
That's just part of one story from CBN's new documentary, To Life. There are many more stories about how Israeli volunteers are changing the world. If you would like your own copy, one for your church or friends, you can order one on cbn.com. That's all for this edition. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.